All right, so hello everybody and happy Tuesday. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I see so many faces. Oh, this is just the best. All right. Well, so I have my mocktail. First, I just want to toast and say happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody. Happy Giving Tuesday to everybody. I have someone who's turning 100 that I love very much today, so I'd like to toast to them. So we just lifted up mocktail cocktail. Have a sip. My name is Jean Grey Mohs. I'm so happy to be here with you during this crazy quarantine time. And what a just wild adventure. So anyway, some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm an artist here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I would consider myself what you might call a narrative abstractionist. I'm at the heart of things, am a storyteller, and I don't necessarily tell stories with realistic imagery, although I have done that in the past. Lately, my work has been mostly narrative abstraction. Tonight, as we kind of look at some images, I have a moderator with us, Emily Kotecki. She's a museum educator. So if you hear another voice, it's not me like throwing my voice, it's Emily. So Emily, if you just want to say hi. Oh yeah, gotta unmute yourself.
Hello.
So
this is my voice that you'll hear.
Yeah, so we're going to take a little tour where I'm going to talk a little bit, but mainly you're just going to observe, enjoy, and learn a little bit about my work. Afterwards, Emily's going to start us off with a couple questions. And then if any of you, oh, Neil Cameron, Mary, you're sharing your screen. And then if any of you, let's see, that's all right. Let's see, how can we fix that? And if any of you have questions, then we'll go from there. So let me begin. And I'm excited. So welcome to the Alluvium Gallery. It's going to be a virtual experience today. My work right now is sort of in a different direction, but also a continuation of work that I've been doing. If you followed me as an artist, my past two bodies of work have been dichotomy, which has been these kind of contrasting imagery, but also these basic mark-making shapes, and moving into a body of work called An Adult at Rest. I had a debilitating lung disease that kind of had me on the end of my life last year. The timing of this release is very important because this time last year, May 7th, I did a solo show, and the body of work was specifically about sort of my end-of-life experience that I was having. And I had an amazing double lung transplant, and this is kind of what's come out of that. So what you're going to see today is the Alluvium collection, and it is a joyful representation of me embracing this new life and new ability. So who's ready? Let's go. So we're moving first to Alluvium. So those of you may have wondered, alluvium, what does that mean? So alluvium, as you can read along, it means to wash against. It's this idea of rivers coming through and sediment landing, and from that, fertile soil grows. I think that I've had this very transformative year, so imagining things moving, imagining things settling, and then imagining what will grow from what has come before. This is kind of one of my signature pieces, or kind of beginning pieces of the show. Those of you who know my work will see some familiar mark making with sort of this hatching. This hatching was kind of a representative of my past body of work with this idea of like constriction, confined. You know, I was, with my lung disease, I was very confined to spaces. I was on oxygen, so it was kind of these imprisoned. And the body of work last year was these little organisms and these little universes that are trapped on the page. And what's exciting about this work, and you'll see, is things start sort of expanding. Okay, so let's keep going. So I'm going to pause sometimes as we go through and let you just take it in for a minute and read to yourself. Now, before, my mark making of the hatching was these tight-knit little places. But as this year, as I've been able to breathe more, walk more, explore more, do more things than ever thought possible, my strokes have gotten bigger, the spaces have gotten bigger, the tiny marks that you'll see here that used to be really confined have started playing more and having huge spaces to play in. I'm gonna keep going. So one of my favorite things to do in some of these abstract works is to create little obstacles of colors, of line, of texture, and kind of drag other colors or things through it and see how that transforms it. How does it change it? How does it settle? How does it, what does it create? How do they mix? How do they form? And so you're going to see a lot of that as we're moving forward. So not only you're going to start to see sort of like these rivers, these breaths, these winds, this movement, this joyful expression. I love how some of them from previous bodies of work of mine start to even resemble these minerals and this like hardening, which I love, this idea of the strength that's coming in and forming. It's just been a really powerful, joyful thing. I know that last year when I did my body of work, it was sometimes all about the unknown marks I was making, and because I was so out of control of my health and trying to make that a really joyful, beautiful thing. The further I moved into this series, the more things started not just like exploding off the page, but almost like you couldn't catch them. They were these little glimpses. You'd catch a corner of the piece, you'd catch a line of the piece, and it started to become more about the negative space, this sort of like what's to come, what is going to come from this, what's going to grow from this fertile soil. And as much as we are all at home right now, globally, in most places, I just think like what is settling now? What was going to grow from this time? And I'm choosing to have a positive outlook on this, and I really love these negative shapes and how they're coming into play. Now, this next one we're going to move towards, I'd love some feedback from you guys. So I cannot see my chat screen, so Emily's going to help me out. So if you have a question, if you just want to type in, but what I want some feedback from you guys. So I want to know what you're noticing, because abstraction, the most beautiful thing about it is, if you didn't know my story, you would bring your experience to it, and you would say, it reminds me of this, or this color brings out this emotion, or it could be any number of things, right? So if anybody wants to share out something they notice, a reoccurring shape that you see or that's catching your eye, or the use of space, movement. Emily, if there's any chats, let me know. If not, we can move forward.
I'm going to say we have Brandon has said he recognizes the motion in what he's looking at.
And a lot of that, the colors, specifically for me, I used to not be a fan of using color straight from a tube. I love to mix, I love to blend, I love to create this like blanket of colors that were really meaningful to me. But recently I wanted like the brightness of, as bright as it could get, as the brightest thing that it could possibly be, to just jump off the wall at you.
And Jinga, we're also seeing from Jerry, the longer I look at the work, the softer it gets.
Mm.
And also it reminds me of the struggle of nature.
Yes, well, that's wonderful.
Another, it's moved by the way you connect breathing with water, the river, and settling, because these three things seem at first really different.
What a nice observation.
Paint strokes lifting up, very celebratory colors. Nate Mohs says the swaths can represent storm deposits in a floodplain that can happen quickly. I can see the geologist and artist collaboration happening here. Rippling water. Blakely says, I like the water movement and the colors have such energy. Also here, a landing and an emerging.
I'll give it one more second, then we'll move on, unless anybody wants to speak up.
A washing over and through from Janice. And also Sarah says, the crystalline and rock structures are pretty cool to see. It does make me think of Nate.
Yes, he does influence me. All right, so we'll keep on going.
One more comment, Jean Grey, from Alex.
Yes.
They have a printmaking quality to them. Can't wait to see them in person.
Well, you know what I really enjoy about printmaking? That's interesting you bring that up, is that it's an indirect mark making. And in the past, I've done a lot of realistic work, and you can see the brushstroke, you can see the man-made quality about it. But in these, I was in some ways trying to remove myself from the marks made. So it's interesting because printmaking is not of the hand, it's sort of the secondary, right? I mean, you make the print, and then, but then the print itself is an indirect mark made. So it's an interesting thing. So alluvial deposits, of course, Nate could chime in about this, but the layers that have kind of settled in. And these take time, you know, and sometimes they transform so much. I mean, there's paintings under paintings under these. If you were to be up close to them, you know, you can really see that even in the white areas, there are, I've painted over a painting, another painting, and, you know, there's just so much that is kind of settled into these. So if you're up close to them, I mean, you really can just dig into these paintings for a while. This isn't the best medium, but the best for now. So we'll keep moving. And I spoke about this a little bit, but the colors were a really important part of this, and just sort of describing the juxtaposition of my life experience from literally this May last year till right now. You know, you'd be hearing me breathing through a tube last year this time. And so I had to just so intentionally make these colors joyful and show this kind of flexibility and strength coming through in these.
We've got 2 questions here if you want to take them now, or we could wait till the end of the virtual tour. Okay. Blakely says, what do you mean by removing yourself from the mark making in terms of your process?
So, let's see, how would I say that? So an artist that I really loved is Helen Frankenthaler, which I'm sure that a lot of you are very familiar with. And a lot of her techniques were staining, which isn't necessarily paintbrush to paint to a canvas. It was a pouring of a paint, or so I guess what I mean by removing myself is you're not going to see, or I mean, you will see, because in this instance, you know, you can see a mark made with, I hope you guys can see my mouse moving, but you can see my mark made here, right? But necessarily, you're not going to see the man-made touch by some of the pooling, right? That's not something I could have naturally created. It has to kind of occur on its own, which is the play of materials. And then was there one more?
Yes, there's one more from Janice. What is under the white strips?
Great question. So, you know, it depends on the painting, but sometimes it's hiding a certain color, it's hiding a certain, you know, obstacle, or you can imagine it's a certain moment kind of being hidden or tucked away. Kind of like that, the river, you know, the tides coming in, the shores, the carrying, the sediment, the layering, the building up of these experiences to create this richness or this complexity of your life, you know, just visualized in this sort of like flat surface. And we keep going. So moving in this direction, I feel like this is kind of an idea of like works to come. Even moving through this whole, you know, virtual space, you might
I might in some ways even say there's like 4 bodies of work paths I could go down. Because there was so much playfulness this year with making work. There was so much discovery, so much excitement with my new sort of abilities that I have gained. And I think there's a lot here that I've learned even. So that even these pieces here are pieced together, multiple sort of moments. They're not necessarily, they're created over time and collaged together. I'm excited to see where this will bring me.
Ingrid, there's a comment saying that there's an interesting balance of geometric and organic shapes, controlled and uncontrolled, with a weathered appeal.
Thank you for that comment.
Ingrid, were you working on all of them at the same time or one at a time?
So some pieces are like in the same family. There might be the same day I started on them, or the same day I had one color out and added a layer. But I'd say that I've been continuously working on them for at least the past, I'd say 6 months or 7 months. Right after surgery, it took some time to get back to the studio and feel like, is this something that I choose? Is it something that chooses me? But yeah, so if you look, and this is, I'm going to put this up on my website. So this is something you can come and look at later if you want, but you can kind of go back through and you'll start to see threads of works that kind of go with each other, or were born on the same day, or, worked on in similar times. But they're never necessarily finished at the same time. You know what I mean? They each have their own story to tell and their own, I don't know, the days I sort of respond to them. And that's kind of the end of our tour for now. I know Emily wanted to ask a few questions, and then we can, if anyone had anything extra to ask, we can kind of open it up to the group. Let me stop and my face, I guess. Let's see, and watch y'all's faces. There you are.
So I'm actually gonna start with a question. Can you describe what the surfaces look and feel like? As you know, as you mentioned earlier, we're in a different type of artist talk. So can you describe a little bit more about what the look and feel is?
Well, so in this body of work, there are 3 surfaces I was working with. One is a wood surface, which would be smooth. It was my favorite to work with because you could be very destructive. You could it took a beating. You could carve into it. You could drag across it. You could scrape into it. You could erase it. You could rub it, raw or whatever. So the surfaces of the wood are actually quite smooth, except for a few areas. Some are on paper. So those really didn't take on much of a surface because they weren't a very thick texture. A lot of those were more watercolor, so it's going to be a really lightness. You would feel really just the texture of a watercolor paper. And then, of course, the canvas, I'm trying to think. There may be some with some subtle bumps. There was this one painting that took on this tiny little mountainous area that was really lovely. But typically it would just, there's not too much texture to them.
And my follow-up is, how big are they? It's hard to sometimes tell scale online. So when we're looking at some of those big pieces and even some of your smallest ones, what are the sizes?
So I have to give a shout out to Anthony Ferris up in North Dakota State University. He helped with the virtual gallery, so thank you for that. We had a tough time figuring out scale. So there are some that are 5.5 by 7 inches up to 3 by 4 feet. So we tried to get it as much down to a realistic shape as we could within the gallery walls. But there's a range of sizes, 9 by 12s, 11 by 14s, a couple 24 by 24s. There's a whole range of things. So.
And I want to also say that I've been writing some key words down as you've been talking, and I have noticed words like joyful, strength, powerful, rich, complexity, moments. And I think those words are very enriching right now. As you mentioned, we're all apart, and to create something and for all of us to come together and to look at something that is so positive, I think I can raise my glass to those ideas and to think about that and fall asleep to that. And reflecting on what you've created in a time, even though we didn't know this was happening now, that I appreciate and you sharing and creating your work. A lot of the questions that we've had are about your process, and in museums, that is always, it's like, how do artists click? How do they work? And I want to explore that a little bit more with you. We talked about size, materials, texture, but when you're in the moment, are you working in a spontaneous way? Are you planning it out ahead of time? How does that work for you?
Great question. So Dichotomy, a couple collections ago, came from having two twins that were tiny, and I had no time for myself. And so Dichotomy was an intentional regiment to make myself have the time. And I would sit down after the kids went to bed, and 8:30 I would sit down and work and make that intentional time. And I think I just lost my train of thought, but I mean, one more time, the last bit. I wanted
your process, is it spontaneous? Is it planned for this? Yeah.
So my process, it can be, so what was really important about carving that time out is because art for me is like meditation. It's like what someone would be yoga or someone would be running. I don't understand those people, but some people who run, you know, it's my place where like, I just poof, I'm gone. You know, it's a place where like, I go in a room and 3 hours later I come out and I wasn't sure I was there. I mean, I guess I could imagine it's what people feel like what hypnosis would be. I don't know, it sounds really odd, but I have to be able to have a chunk of time to kind of just disappear into it and make the work. So it's very spontaneous. In fact, sometimes if I think too much about something, I will just ruin it. I don't know if anybody who's an artist in this room can have some experience to that.
It's interesting you say, well, Nate says it looks quite chaotic while it's happening. So from an outside perspective, Nate says it can look a little chaotic. But you mentioned your kids, and there's been a couple questions actually about, do you involve Baker and Borgie in your process, or is this a Jean Grey artist time?
Well, let's be honest, they're here all the time unless they're sleeping. So they have their place on the floor, they have their own brushes, they have their own watercolors. So they're there waking and working with me, you know, and I think it's important, you know, I've talked with moms like yourself, you need to show them that you're reading, so they're reading. You know, you want to show them doing the things that you love, so they'll do the things that they love. You know, like encourage that passion in them. So yeah, they help me out. I don't know if they're like helping me out on my canvas, but they definitely have their own, right?
We have another question about, do you see these as, and I'm sorry if I'm not always using your name, I'm not sure if it's your first or your last name, but Freeman Jackson, we'll just go by the handle that you have in your box. Do you see these as capturing any emotional or physical pain or joy? Do you see them as emotionally agnostic or hopeful?
I'd say they are all hopeful. They are all joyful. And it's my like love letter of thanks for, you know, this beautiful life that we have.
What are, looking at, as you went through the gallery and you reviewed your art, it's obviously nearby in front of you in real life, but also virtually, what are some of the pieces that stick out to you? What are some of the details that you've created that you just have fallen in love with?
So that very, very first piece I showed you is like my most favorite piece of the whole piece. And I think often when I find something that I love, let's be honest, often when I make work, I'm done with it and I'm ready to move on because I've worked through what I need from it. And the finished product isn't the thing that isn't the reason I do it, right? But sometimes a piece will strike me, like the one I started with today. And the reason why things will strike me is because it's like a mystery. It's like a surprise. It's something that teaches me, even when I didn't realize I was teaching myself a lesson. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's something that I can somehow learn from. And that first piece, you know, I had tried something new. There was a mixture of things happening that was exciting. And yeah.
Would you mind showing it again? There are a couple people who might have missed that first piece or would like to just go back after seeing so many beautiful pieces to be reminded of what that piece was.
Yeah, I can. Oh, I'm not. So the piece that I'm speaking about is this one. And for me, like really digging into it, it's when these little moments that you cannot create kind of come alive. And, you know, that's what That's what excites me about it. Just these things, these touches, these little like energetic moments, even like this red line. It's like the painter in me. I mean, I don't know. So it's exciting. I'll leave here for just a second. But
we have another question from, I think it's Anthony. There was a lot of people around during the healing process, and I'm assuming, James, you're thinking of Jean Grey's healing process, and then we went into quarantine. Has the work changed at all during that change?
Thinking about that. I don't know that it has. I don't know. I've had more time suddenly, but not as much time, if that makes sense. Before, because before the kids were in school some, so I could have some time, but I wish I could say it has, and that would make a really thoughtful answer, but no, I don't know if it has really changed that much since then. Thank you for,
And are these paintings, are they for you in any, are they chronological? Are they representative of like a certain moment in your healing process that, or are they all, let me see if I can get this right. Can you trace them back to a moment in your healing process? Or are they this like big overall representation of the overall feeling?
If you wanted to be a detective, an art detective, and really go and dig into the pieces or look at them when they come up tomorrow or on Thursday, you can see where the beginning they're contained more, and then they slowly kind of start coming off, and then they're eventually only on half of the page. I mean, it definitely had a chronological order to them, and I'm excited to kind of work even more with this idea of negative space moving forward. Less about even my marks and more about just the space to leave for creation. So that's a good question. I think that I'll leave it to you to see if you can order them in your mind. They are not numbered. They are not numbered in that order. So.
And I think it's interesting. You mentioned the negative space, and that's something that you and I had talked about when I got an early sneak peek, that was something new that felt very intentional. And you think of negative space as something that's unintentional, but I feel like it sounds like it's something that you've created very intentionally in these paintings.
Yes, so in case no one knows what negative space is, positive space is the object, and the negative space is the object created by the edge of the positive shape. I just want to make sure no one's thinking like negative space as like a negative feeling, like it's the empty zone around the shapes that, and then you create the shape, like right now I'm making a triangle.
And then the negative space can be as interesting as the positive space.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what you've created so wonderfully. Alex asks, are you done with this body of work? Are you moving on or pushing this particular process further?
I'm pushing it. Let's go. I'm ready. Let's, I think you might see seeing some more negative spaces in my future. I'm excited about that. So we're gonna see. It's exciting. We got time now ish.
There is a question, but it's been answered about where is the exhibit, and Blakely has answered it is a virtual gallery space. So what we saw earlier was a virtual gallery because we cannot go to a place physically right now. That and for those maybe who came in just as you started talking, we started right on time, but just want to make sure that everyone gets caught up to what this day represents in your life, in your history as an artist. Why this week? Why today? What was the physical gallery space where we last congregated? So would you want to just do a quick recap of that?
So just quickly, a year ago to this day, I was 50 pounds lighter. I had an oxygen tube. I had created a body of work that was helping me deal with coming to the end of my life. And now a year later, I am healthier than I ever could have imagined. I'm stronger, more capable, and just like, it's legit. So this is a body of work that's celebrating that. And we are in quarantine. So what better way than to come together online in a virtual gallery?
And just to mention when this is coming out, I'm going to let some other people want to put in their final questions, but do you want to tell us about when this is being released online and when, if people are interested in looking more at it, getting closer virtually to it,
Yes.
or they can purchase some if they so are moved to?
Yes, so tomorrow, if you're on the newsletter, there's going to be a 7 o'clock email, and you'll get a code to go into the gallery. And then on Thursday, I'm going to release it to the wild at 12 o'clock. So if you're interested in either, feel free to go and look. I'm also going to post the gallery, so if you just want to peruse around in that comfortable space when you're just your own living room, feel free to do so. And yeah, and today's Giving Tuesday, so if anything is purchased, I'm giving a portion to the Interfaith Food Shuttle because it's feeding our kids who aren't getting food at school. So yeah, this has been lovely, and it's nice, seeing so many faces that I love on the screen. So hello to everyone.
Is there anything else, Jean Grey, that has not come up in these questions that you would like to address in terms of a specific painting or the overall body of work?
I think I feel good about it. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your Cinco de Mayo to join me here in this online room. And, till we all can be together and hug. And it's like Baker says, we're all going to come out of our houses and we're all going to cry. So anyway, thanks for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Everyone, Jean Grey, can you see the chat now? It's lighting up.
JG, love you. The painting you painted for us, Natalie and I look at every night. We love it so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, we don't need this crazy love fest. Y'all have a good night. And,
can we unmute everybody and all say stuff like we do in the morning on Tin Can Kids?
I'll say goodbye.
Tin Can Kids this morning.
Thank you.
Hey, Becky.
That was great.
Well done, JG.
Hey,
Really enjoy.